A man who wears the 10 pounds of gold, the nature boy, Ric Flair.
You know, I always like to take this opportunity to talk about myself.
The 16-time heavyweight champion has arrived.
I've got the style and profile like never before.
The greatest talker in the history of the business is behind the mic once again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine like, jet flying, son of a gun. Woo!
This is Wooooo Nation with Ric Flair.
I'm the man. Ric Flair. Woo!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Wooooo Nation. I'm the sidekick on the show, Conrad Thompson. The man with the plan, though, is the nature boy, Ric Flair. And we're running a little behind this week. We didn't get a chance to post an episode last week as Rick was traveling with WWE abroad. He went to Germany, and he's back stateside today, and we're catching him first thing in the morning. And we're doing something special. We're doing Ask Naitch, and I'm asking the first question. Naitch, how you feeling this morning?
Well, actually, I'm feeling pretty good considering 20 hours in the air yesterday. Actually, it was a great trip. I always like going with the kids. We took off from Seattle last Tuesday and flew from there to Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam to Mannheim, Germany. And then Mannheim to Cologne to Magnaden, I think I pronounced it, and then into Berlin. So, and then we flew from Berlin to Chicago, and then Chicago to L.A., where I am right now.
Whew, that's a lot of travel. So where's Raw tonight? Raw's in Los Angeles?
Anaheim, yes.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We've had a lot of great questions.
The Disney World without Space Mountain.
Well, we posted back a week ago now and letting everybody on Twitter go ahead and chime in with their questions for you using the hashtag AskNaitch. And if you want to go ahead and participate in this next time, just remember to do that on Twitter. Use hashtag AskNaitch. So let's go ahead and go right to the questions. Brian Lee on Twitter asks, Ask Naitch, who do you think you've bled the most with? He's talking about color specifically. Do you think that, bleeding is a lost art in the business today, or is it just a thing from the past and you're glad it's gone, or where are you at on that?
Well, the person that I bled the most would either be Wahoo McDaniels or Dusty Rhodes. I would have to say Dusty, probably. We both had no problem doing that. And it's not that it's a lost art. I think it's just a health precaution, and it's obviously safer for the guys not to be doing it. For an old-timer like me, I miss it, but I think there are occasions for it, but obviously it's for health reasons, and the safety issues that the company's become much more aware of, the concussions, the blood, and stuff like that. So, I think it was a necessity. I miss it, yes, but I can't critique, I can't be critical of the company trying to make it better for the guys, safer,
Yeah. Sean on Twitter wants to know, who was the stiffest opponent in the ring, not counting Brody or Hansen? You've actually said several times that Brody was not with you, but who was the toughest hand that you worked with?
The toughest or the stiffest?
The stiffest.
Jumbo Tsuruta, the Japanese. He won a bronze medal in the 82 Olympics, or 70, I can't remember, but he was a bronze medalist in the Olympics for the Japanese and in Greco-Roman. So it was all the throws, the suplexes.
Sure.
He was a smaller version of Brock.
That's a good analogy. So if you're at your computer right now, go ahead and throw in and look up some Jumbo stuff. Hey, Ant on Twitter wants to know, what should every man have in his wardrobe? That's a good question to ask you.
What should every man have in his wardrobe? A custom-made shirt and some really good cologne.
Well, there you go. So I'm curious, one of the questions that somebody's obviously going to ask when you say that, what cologne do you wear?
Dolce Gabbana.
Okay, there you go.
My son gave that to me for about 5 years, and I swore I would never change out, so I'd wear it every day. I used to have like 10 different bottles of stuff, but I just wear the Dolce now because of him.
Yeah, I think that's what most guys do. I think they just find one they like and they stick with it.
Yeah, in the old days, we all threw so much on after the matches and run into the bar. we carried it in the glove compartment.
That's hilarious. I love that. Little last-minute spritz.
Yep.
Benjamin Bell on Twitter asks, did Rick train in the gym with Rick Rude? Was Rude a beast in the gym? We don't get a lot of questions about Rick Rude.
I saw him train. I mean, by beast, you mean strong?
Yeah.
Not exceptionally. I'll tell you what he was, a real good arm wrestler.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
But as far as lifting weights, I don't think he was that strong. I mean, what are we comparing him to? Dino Bravo? Or
Right.
I mean, there were some guys who were just so ridiculously strong, like Atlas and Bravo, and the Steiners were both, especially Rick Steiner was really strong in the gym. And then, of course, Barbarian was another 600-pound bench wrestler. We don't have a lot of guys like that in the business now. The strongest guy in the business right now is Cesaro.
Yeah, everybody talks about how strong he is. And
he's a powerhouse in the gym. He will not train in a gym that does not have a platform. By platform, I mean where you can drop the weights and all that. You know what I mean?
Wow. Benjamin Bell, the same guy who asked the last question, is really asking some really good questions about training, and I know you'll like these. What year did Rick feel he looked the best, and what did a good day at the gym entail during that time?
I think I looked my best in 86 or 87, and my workout has always been the same. I hit every body part hard twice a week, and then on one day I just did a little bit on every body part. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I did 500 free squats, or I did 30 minutes on the Stairmaster or the revolving staircase, just about every piece of equipment that came along. And of course, if I didn't do the cardio, I didn't feel like I'd worked out. So I did that always after the workout because it would deplete my strength. But yeah, just 2 hours every day, regardless. I found some way to get through it. I don't know how. I look back on it now. I hate going to the gym.
Yeah, you've told me for a long time, if you don't do it first thing in the morning, it ain't happening.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I did it. I mean, even if I stayed up all night, I worked out, and I felt better for doing it. But, that was just something that was kind of the way I was not raised but brought into the business, that the workout was very important. And I think it's paid off for me over the years because, my knees and my elbows and my back, knock on wood, everything's still intact. So I think all the free squats and stuff like that were good for me. Push-ups are great for you too, boy. There was never a day I couldn't do 100 push-ups. Now I'd be lucky if I could do 40. Yeah, that's the difference. But maybe 30.
Jim on Twitter asks, can you name one thing you've gotten out of Bobby Eaton's infamous bag? That's so inside, even I don't know what he's talking about.
I have no idea what that means.
All right, we'll go ahead and skip around.
I will just tell you this: Bobby Eaton is a phenomenal performer.
Yeah, and also from right here in Huntsville, Alabama. Cheap plug.
Yep.
Stephanie O'Connor on Twitter asks, any stories about Sherri Martel, and is her contribution to wrestling underrated?
Well, I don't know that it's underrated. I mean, she was one of the first. I think that she was one of the most colorful women in wrestling at
Absolutely.
That time. Different, and she was a good performer, different than the girls are now. But I think her contributions as a worker are maybe underlooked. But she was a great manager. I mean, she managed Sean, she managed me, she managed Randy. I mean, I think I can't remember who else, but everybody she managed, she was a phenomenal manager. And boy, she was in there. I mean, she was. If a fight started in the bar, she was in the middle of it. The queen. She was hilarious. She was a lot of fun and very much missed.
There's a picture out there of Sherri in one of your robes. What's the story with that?
I don't know. What year was it?
I don't know. It was the one I like so much, the black one with the white feathers and silver butterflies.
Oh, God. Let me think. I probably can't tell it.
Well, we'll move on.
She liked to wear my stuff. Let's put it like that.
Okay, we'll go with that. Jason on Twitter asked a good question we haven't really talked about. What was the atmosphere and response like in the locker room when you returned to the WWE in 2001?
Well, the response when I went there.
Yeah, when you went back
2001. It was great. I mean, it was like I'd never left. I mean, so many guys had crossed over and gone back and forth. At that point in time, that I felt very comfortable. I mean. I certainly wasn't ready to wrestle. That was the issue. Our deal was I was never going to wrestle, and then 3 months later I was in a Royal Rumble with Vince. So I mean, it just I wish I'd prepared myself a little better for that. But when you take a couple of years off, you just kind of forget about that part of the business. And the way we started the thing out, where I was a co-owner with him, went great. I mean, that was a fabulous run we had with that. And then Steve Stone Cold took off, and they put me back in the ring, so with no choice. So, but no, I felt like I felt very comfortable. I had no problems with it.
David on Twitter asked a great question that you and I have never talked about, but I think I'm excited to hear your answer here too. What is your view on music being played for a run-in? Does it take you out of the moment and make you realize it's planned?
I haven't seen music being played on a run-in. I've seen music played all the time when they interrupt promo segments, but if they have played music on a run-in, I haven't seen it, or I guess I just didn't pay attention to
like
it.
When Seth Rollins cashed in at WrestleMania this last year, when he ran down, they played his music, and he ran to the ring with the case. I think that's kind of what he's talking about. And back in the day, though, in the old Crockett days, there was no music being played. Just all of a sudden, he's there and handling business.
When he hit the ring, I mean, I remember the match. When he hit the ring, were both guys down?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, then I think the music is fine. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I think, besides, it's good anyway because it's what so many people they like the entrance music as much as they like the match. I mean, if you think back to how good it was, Shawn Michaels' entrance, he had a hard time following it with a match. Sometimes it was that good. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And that stuff he did where he aerialed in from the ceiling of a building. I mean, and the Undertaker's music. I mean, if Undertaker didn't play his music, there'd be people that'd be mad, including myself. So yeah, I think the guys, especially the ones that whose music has been in existence for a long time, it's a huge part of the show. Look when they play Hunter's music, the game and all. I mean, it's just it's just stuff that it's going to stay with the business forever. Memories, mine as well. I hope.
Oh, absolutely. David on Twitter asked a question that I think I know the answer to, but I'm still curious. Who is your favorite wrestler to travel with, and why?
Oh, my favorite to travel with was Arn by far. But it wasn't just Arn and I, though. It was Arn and I, Tully, and JJ usually because, Barry kind of took off by himself, like driving by himself. He was single, and a lot of times he'd pick up a chick along the way, you know what I mean?
Sure.
This is before he got married. So it was mostly the four of us, but we just had a good time, and we just, I don't think there was ever a time when it was like, the word familiarity breeds contempt. I don't think it was ever a time that existed in our relationship like that. It's just, we just had fun. We knew how good we were, and we were good at it. And we got in the car, and we knew that we had, fulfilled our end agreement, and then the rest of the night was ours.
Want great deals on products and unique experiences in your neighborhood? Look no further than CBS Local Offers, which brings you the best local deals in your community with everything from enticing restaurants to exciting events. Go to offers.cbslocal.com today.
Introducing Play.it, a podcast network like no other. From award-winning news programming and #1 sports brands to entertainment and business leaders, Play.it is delivering storytelling at its best.
We're going to be having conversations with newsmakers and culture shapers.
I will be talking mostly about fashion and how I've been marketing all my life.
Tech, culture, and entrepreneurship.
Everything in the world of sports entertainment and wrestling and beyond.
Hear what you've been missing at Play.it.
Listen to CBS Sports Radio every weekend for non-stop sports updates and breaking news, including analysis of the hottest topics in sports.
CBS Sports Radio. CBS Sports Radio.
Listen live every weekend on air or online at cbssportsradio.com.
All right, we're going to take a break from Ask Naitch just for a second, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Mack Weldon. I tell you what, man, I love wearing my Mack Weldon, and so does Rick. Even Wendy, Fifi the French maid, she loves Rick's Mack Weldon too. That's right, go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off using promo code FLAIR. That's F-L-A-I-R. Woo! Come on, get you some of that Mack Weldon right now. They're easy to buy, they're high quality, and very comfortable. Mack Weldon underwear, socks, and shirts are antimicrobial, which means they eliminate odor. You can't expect to score with the ladies if you stink. Mack Weldon is so sure you're going to love their underwear that if you don't like the first pair, they'll refund you, no questions asked, and you can keep the pair. If Mack Weldon is good enough for the 16-time heavyweight champion of the world, then they're good enough for you. Once again, support Woo Nation and go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off just for using the promo code FLAIR. That's F-L-A-I-R, and do it right now at MackWeldon.com. MI3 on Twitter asks, are there any guilty pleasures that you have that may be surprising to wrestling fans who don't know you?
Any guilty pleasures?
Yeah, like, I know you like to watch Married with Children, and I think people would probably be shocked by that, but is there anything else you want to share? Just stuff that you enjoy that
I'm guilty about?
No, it's just an expression, like a guilty pleasure is eating chocolate ice cream or,
No, I don't have any problem like that. Pasta is my weakness, but yeah, married with children, it still gets me going. What a way to wake up in the morning. That show is the best.
Here's a question that we don't really hear about, kind of a throwback. Everybody knows that WWE has catering now, and they really roll out the red carpet there, and it's a big production. But Joey on Twitter asked, what did the guys eat for breakfast and lunch back in the day? Because if you're eating on the road, that had to be challenging, and I somehow doubt that Crockett and everybody had the level of catering that WWE does now.
No, in the old days we didn't have that. We didn't have that at all. At Crockett, we fed ourselves. And I think it's been pretty. Most of us, was egg whites. The egg white thing's been going on forever. And some guys just didn't care; they ate everything. But I think for those of us, I was fortunate enough to be around Steamboat a lot, and whatever he ate, I'd eat, chicken, tuna, egg whites. And of course, you have to remember that I drank a ton of carbs.
Right.
So, I'm not telling you that I was not consuming carbs. I just elected to take mine orally.
They were the liquid form.
Liquid form, yeah.
Sons of Blindness on Twitter ask, any embarrassing moments happen to you in the ring, or any crazy fan stories where maybe somebody jumped in the ring?
Nope. I've seen that happen a couple times, but it was always under control. Back then the referees loved that. Boy, if the headmans could get a shot at somebody coming in the ring, they loved it. So you didn't even have to worry about fighting because the referees liked to jump on top of them. And boy, when one guy hits the ring, both of the guys we're both on our feet regardless. We come together real fast in a bond. We forget that we're opponents for about 3 minutes.
Hitman on
I wonder if people have ever realized that.
No, yeah, I mean, it gets united, no doubt. When a fan jumps in, babyface or heel, the guy who just jumped in is the new target for sure.
Exactly.
Hitman on Twitter asks, can you ask Naitch, did he really have to go to Savage's house and have a rehearsal for their WrestleMania 8 match?
I had to go to the Sportatorium in Florida, and we were 3 hours a day for 5 days.
You guys worked on that match for 15 hours?
We did. We went 3 hours for 5 days a week.
Yeah, that's definitely a match that we need to kind of do what we did for the Royal Rumble with, and talk about that match at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the problem was that there was so much tension between Liz and Randy at that time.
Right.
We didn't actually sit in the ring and wrestle and all that. We just talked and walked through things, and then half the time they were, figuring out what they were going to do with their personal life, which I just had to be there. But I can find something to do in Tampa. Originally, I thought White Cliffs would be terrible, right? But I can find something to do in Tampa,
Yeah, absolutely. Nick on Twitter asks, do you think WWE will ever use more managers again after seeing the success you've had with Charlotte and what Heyman has had with Brock?
I don't know. I mean, I think managers, I think they're are good in the business if they understand the boundaries and their place. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
If people look at it closely, I do a few little things, but actually, Ashley, I mean, I say woo all night long, but Ashley does basically all the talking.
Right.
And that's the way it should be. You know what I mean? See, I don't like that Paul talks for Brock, because to me that heat goes on Paul. Does that make sense?
And so you're just old school in thinking that if the heat's going on Paul, that eventually there's got to be a payoff and somebody's got to beat up Paul?
Well, I think if you look back on the guys that talked a lot, like Bobby Heenan, Bobby Heenan had a ton of heat, but he got the crap beat out of him. And Paul, I don't think he's passed. I don't think he's been passed physically to be taking bumps. I mean, and of course they're always worried about being careful of me, and I've passed every physical there is. So, and I can take bumps, but I mean they don't put that kind of heat on me, and I don't want that kind of heat because it distracts from Ashley or Charlotte.
Right. MI3 asks.
I just feel like the people that are doing all the work in the ring should have all the heat put on them.
No, I agree.
What are your thoughts on that, Conrad?
No, I mean I get what you're saying, but I also think that sometimes you've got a great guy who in the ring is just a dominant, one-of-a-kind performer like a Brock Lesnar, but maybe he's just not as good as expressing himself verbally. So, to use an old Paul Heyman phrase, you accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. And in his case, if he's just not as strong on the mic as he is in the ring, I think you can, cover that up. And I think you could maybe do that with Cesaro. Not to say that Cesaro isn't good on the mic, but if everyone agrees that he's better in the ring than he is on the mic, I think it would be helpful to have him a mouthpiece to accentuate the positives and hide the negatives.
Yeah, I would love that role, but I've verbally said that because I don't think they think he is strong on the mic, but he certainly is strong in the ring.
Sure.
And, I mean, you could make, in my opinion, you could make Cesaro a contender that people would believe in right off the bat for Brock Lesnar. Within 1 month, you could get him that hot.
How cool would that be if that was, I know it's not going to be, but how cool would that be if he was better and that was our WrestleMania match, Brock versus Cesaro?
Hey, don't be surprised if it's not a SummerSlam match.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, when that kid comes back, man, I know they're going to reassess his the way they were using him, and they're going to put him a big push on him. And he's gotten over with the fans anyway. He's got a huge following.
Absolutely.
But if he had someone talking for him, and I like him in the role of being a bad guy, he could be huge, I think.
MI3 on Twitter is really on a roll with good questions. Is there a question you are tired of being asked? Just one question that fans continue to ask, and now you just kind of cringe. You're so tired of it. When we're in public, the one that always gets me is when people come over and say, "Hey, Rick, you remember that time you wrestled Sting?" I don't know why, but yeah. I mean, that just cracks me up. What are you supposed to say to that? Remember that time you wrestled Sting?
Well, my favorite line when I walk up there and say, "I'm sorry to bother you, but..."
Oh yeah, that's the best.
And I before they get the butt out, I say, "If you're sorry for bothering me, don't bother me." That's my favorite line. Yeah, tell your story walking.
That's the best.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bother you, but what do you mean, but what? Just keep going.
What's the biggest pop you ever remember receiving? Can you think back and think, man, that was the biggest reaction I ever got?
Greenville, South Carolina, for the size of the crowd when I came back.
And was that the one in '98 when you were back for Nitro?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. With the guys in the tuxedos and that. Yep. I mean, I've gotten huge reactions. I mean, the Citrus Bowl was awesome when I retired. But for a building that had, maybe 8,000 people in it, that thing in Greenville was pretty cool.
Jimmy on Twitter asked a great question. Who picked the 2001 theme song? You know, your entrance music that you've had forever, the theme song from Space Odyssey 2001. Who picked
American
that?
Dream.
Really?
Yep.
What's the story on that? How does that come about? Do you remember?
I don't know. You know, it's funny because that's funny that I don't know that, but I'm relatively sure that Dusty picked that out for me, and it was along the lines of, the Elvis Presley,
sure,
Frank Sinatra deal. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But it sure did work. I didn't like it at first because it was so calm, but it really caught on. Now they're playing it on commercials on TV. I don't know how they get away with it, but they do.
Judd on Twitter asks, if Ted DiBiase had decided to sign with Crockett instead of the WWF in '87, would he have become a horseman?
I'm sure. Yeah, he was ready-made horse. He was a horseman on his own.
Miles on Twitter asks a question. I know you're not really good at making lists. You don't really like that, but he asks, what are the Nature Boys' top 5 favorite promos? Do you have just one or two? If you can't make 5, that's fine. But do you have a couple that stick out and think, hey, that's...
I sent you that one the other day.
Yeah, so guys listening, everybody, Rick sent me something I'd never seen, and I'll post it on my Twitter. It's a link of JJ bringing out a doll that he's calling...
A mannequin.
A mannequin dressed in lingerie, and he starts moving the mannequin's hair around and kissing the mannequin, and it's the craziest thing I've ever seen, especially for...
That was supposed to be Precious.
What year would that have been? 86, 87?
Jimmy Garvin's, that was Jimmy Garvin's valet.
That is phenomenal.
Jimmy, and I just said I was going to show him how I made love to Precious. Crockett almost fired me.
Who sent you that?
Huh?
Who sent you that?
David, but my son David has all that stuff on me, but I sent that around to everybody. A lot of people hadn't seen that, apparently.
No, I hadn't seen it ever.
If I can pop you, I can.
So, what did Crockett say when you did it? You didn't run it past him, and you said, "Go get a mannequin."
No, I just did it on my own. That because it was kind of like, can you imagine if you did that to me? I don't know what's wrong with that, but like Vince would go crazy if we did that on a show here. You know what I mean? Not the way the companies run now. No,
right.
Back when he was doing all the stuff with Tori and all that. It was
sure.
A different time frame, but that was along the lines of what they were doing. You know, I just was did there, and then I think didn't JJ hand me her thong underwear?
Yes. I mean, it was pretty risque for the time, for sure. It was awesome. I'll link it on Twitter too. So when you're listening to this,
that damn food.
Brandon on Twitter wants to know, who do you think was the better overall big man, Andre or Taker?
Taker. I think, to be honest with you, I think that in ring performer, Big Show is better than Andre.
Wow. Randy on Twitter asks, I know your favorite is Crown Royal, Conrad, but what is Naitch's preferred drink? I'm guessing vodka.
Well, Naitch likes vodka, but Naitch tries to stay on the red wine.
Yeah, and here's a little fun fact for you. Rick drinks red wine in a unique way. He wants it on ice, and that's not something you see very often, but he just likes cold drinks.
Yeah, well, it's like we have a formula. It's 2 bottles of red wine and 1 bottle of a Crown Reserve.
There you go.
3 bottles of red wine, which we've done at one time with Austin, and 2 bottles of Crown Reserve that you drank the bar out of.
That's true. We did float the bar that night.
Steve was drinking tequila and margaritas.
Absolutely.
There was a wide variety of drinks that day.
There really was. I mean, we were holding court there. It was a good time. Judd on Twitter says, if Starrcade 89 could have been rebooked, would you have saved Funk and Flair I Quit for the title as the main event?
Starrcade 89. What was the main event of Starrcade 89?
You know, I should know that, but I don't right off the top of my head. It feels like when Crockett bought it, when Crockett sold, Starrcade kind of started to become not nearly the big event that it was before.
Yeah.
Let's see. That was the Future Shock show. So the main event was Sting defeating you in the main event. I guess it was like non-title. There was like a tournament, if I remember right. And so like Luger wrestled Muta, Sting wrestled Muta, you wrestled Muta.
Oh, the Iron Man thing.
Yeah. It was like multiple matches.
Yeah.
And you guys were all on a
Sting
stage
won.
at the beginning of the show. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Sting won in the end. But so the concept is, do you think it would have been better, coming off that really hot feud that you had with Ricky Steamboat, and then you guys did the Clash of the Champions with Funk? Should you have maybe strung that out and then had the year kind of culminate with you and Funk?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't anticipate that being. It's funny. Terry and I have had much better matches than that, but that one gets a lot of attention. Does that make sense?
What do you think your better match was? Is it something that would be readily available that people could go look up, or are you saying just on house shows and stuff?
No, I'm just saying on house shows, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't wrestle, I didn't get to wrestle him for the world title, but one time, I think, and I probably wasn't, as prepared as I probably thought I was, but, I probably was not as good at that time as I thought I was, and, but I mean, Terry Funk was a tremendous performer. He still is, but later on, he added a little comedy like I did. As your skills decline, you throw something in that'll keep him entertained. But he's a phenomenal performer. I mean that turned out to be a great match, and I'm not sure why people like it that much, but I think it's just the fact that we work so hard together. He let me pound it. He lets me chop the crap out of him, man. And people are going to him, geez, that's got to hurt. It does, but he doesn't care. He's just crazy. Terry's crazy. We had him on the show. You know he is.
Oh, he's phenomenal. But, like the nicest man you've ever met. And it's just hard to imagine that, his most famous piece of work towards the end of his run was the super hardcore stuff that you just wouldn't imagine.
Well, he's put his body through hell, too, and he's still out there running around doing stuff. So
yeah, he just wrestled Lawler towards the end of the year last year in Memphis as like their final stand, which is crazy to think that, those guys 30-something years later are still getting after it.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, Jerry works all the time now still. Even I asked him about the heart thing, and it paired up with just a one-time deal, and he's fine. So. But he stays busy and he likes it.
Andrew on Twitter wants to know, I think you've answered this before, but why did Mr. Flair always wear his knee pads so low?
Because my calves are so skinny. Hide my calves.
Love listening to your favorite stations online? Download the radio.com app to get on-the-go access to hundreds of HD radio stations, award-winning podcasts, and top entertainment and music articles. Go to apps.radio.com for more information or download today from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Introducing Play.it, a podcast network like no other. From award-winning news programming and #1 sports brands to entertainment and business leaders, Play.it is delivering storytelling at its best.
We're going to be having conversations with newsmakers and culture shapers.
I will be talking mostly about fashion and how I've been marketing all my life.
Tech, culture, and entrepreneurship.
Everything in the world of sports entertainment and wrestling and beyond.
Hear what you've been missing at Play.it.
There's something for every sports fan on CBSLocalSports.com. Watch live radio shows and original video programming while reading national articles from some of the best writers in the country. Visit CBSLocalSports.com today.
All right, we're going to take a break from Ask Naitch again right and fast for us to talk to you a little bit about Uber. You see, back in the day when the Nature Boy was riding high, styling, and profiling, he bought himself a limousine, hired a kid to drive him around, and he had the time of his life. But now Rick uses Uber when he needs to get around. So now if you're looking to make some extra money, you can drive Uber using your own car. Uber's a smartphone app that connects riders with drivers, and it's totally flexible. You don't have to quit your day job to make sure you make more money because Uber lets you make extra money on your schedule. Whenever you need to make a few extra bucks, just turn on the app and drive. A few hours here, a few hours there, it all adds up, and it adds up fast. And it's really easy to get started. First, go Go to thedrivewithuber.com and sign up for free. You can do it right now on your phone. It's drivewithuber.com. And second, answer a few basic questions about you and your car and get yourself approved. And then third, you just start driving. That's all there is to it. I told you it was easy. Start enjoying the flexibility of working when you want and earning extra money on your schedule. So what are you waiting for? Sign to Drive with Uber today. Go to drivewithuber.com. That's drivewithuber.com. drivewithuber.com. Now back to more Woo Nation. Cincinnati Southpaw has a great question you're going to love. What kind of wrestler would Pete Rose have been with his hustle and lavish lifestyle?
Well, for sure he would have been a horseman. I think Pete right now is a horseman. I see Pete all the time. As a matter of fact, I was doing a signing with Pete this coming Saturday that just got postponed for 2 weeks. And actually, I'm glad because I was going to have to fly back out to Vegas and then fly back to Cleveland for Fastlane. So, on a red eye. So, the fact that it got canceled, it's not upsetting me at all.
Larry on Twitter asks, how about a good behind-the-scenes Vince story? You have to have some fun Vince stories.
Well, it's nothing. Usually, if something goes on behind the scenes, he's pissed off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got 1,000 of those just tearing me up. Are you kidding me?
Give us one.
80's heels don't draw. God damn it! Stop that. Who taught you to slam off the top rope? I mean, he would scream at me. He said, "You go get your agent and take that tape and go look at your match and then come back and tell me what was wrong with it." Oh, yeah. Jesus.
Hey, so I don't know that we've talked about this on the show before, but there was a Saturday night main event with you and Macho, I think, and then you guys had to go back out and recreate the finish or something. What was the story on that?
Oh, it was in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was terrible. We had to have the whole match over again.
So what happens? You guys have the match, you come back through the curtain, and what does Vince say?
No, Heenan came out and said, "Stop the match." She just stopped the match, went back, and he didn't like the way it was going, and geez, it was terrible. And they had Scott Hall hit the ring, and something just wasn't timed out right. All I know is it wasn't my fault.
That's the
I think it's where they put the title back on me.
Okay, cool. Man, lots of questions here about promos. Let's ask this one. The most painful thing you've experienced in the ring. So not out of the ring, but in the ring. What was your worst injury or most painful thing in the ring? Like, he gives examples like thumbtacks, but I wouldn't imagine he'd put that on the list. It would be an injury, right?
Yeah, no, thumbtacks don't hurt. It's funny. I have to think about that, but it's funny. A lot of times when you get hurt in the ring, you don't feel it until after you get back to the locker room.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you cool off a little bit. I guess, once I was doing a spot I was in Dallas wrestling Sting, and we did a spot where I thought he was going to leapfrog me and he dropped down, and I thought I broke my leg in half.
Wow.
I mean, it hurt that bad, but 2 days later I was fine. But you couldn't have told me that. I thought, holy cow, I just broke my leg in half. It's just one of those things, an accident. But that stands out in my mind. Has stood out in my mind for a long time. Because we were running wide open, and I thought he was going to drop leapfrog when he dropped down and hit me right at the knees. So, but a couple of days later, I was fine.
Scott Rucker on Twitter asks, I'd like to hear about Ric's relationship with the eccentric promoter Jim Barnett. Surely he has a fun story or two.
My boy. He loved me. So my relationship with Jim was great. I mean, I never took advantage of him. He liked me, and he knew that I worked hard. And when somebody wanted a favor from me, they would go to Jim. By favor, it'd be like add on some days as if I didn't have enough, right?
Right.
So he would like tell me, because Carlos Colon, when we were so hot in Puerto Rico, I'd end up having like 3 days off for Christmas, and he'd call me and say, my boy, I just got a call from Carlos Colon. He said he needs a nature boy for Three Kings Day, which is Christmas, in Port San Juan.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but I mean, he treated me great, and he handled all my payoffs. And I hated it when they removed him from that position. He was great. He was the the coordinator of the champions schedule and everything. So yeah, the whole thing fell apart when Bob Geigel became the head of the NWA. The whole thing fell to hell and a handbag, whatever that means.
Yeah. Michael Cole, on a different Michael Cole, on Twitter asks, in honor of Black History Month, who are some of your favorite African-American opponents? Just as far as in-ring work, I'm sure is what he means.
Ron Simmons, Ernie Ladd. I really like working with the Big Cat. Ron, of course, I work with Ron a lot. Butch Reed. Gotta love working with Butch Reed. I wrestled him a lot of all of Broadway's. Tiger Conway back in the old days. We just kind of we were learning the ropes together back in the 70s. Who am I missing here? I can't remember. Pretty much anybody that I wrestled Bobo Brazil back in the 70s. Of course, Rufus R. Jones.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I drew a lot of money with all those guys, especially the Big Cat. Big Cat was over in Butch Reed, and of course Ron and I, we were very close to this day because, unfortunately, he's a product of Florida State, and I have to remind him of that. This year, I had to remind him several times.
Hey, so let me ask you, we never really talked about this in length before, but when he won the world title and became the first, Black American world heavyweight champion in wrestling, that happened at a time when you weren't there. It was August of '92, and it was kind of a weird deal where Sting was supposed to wrestle Vader. Jake Roberts injured Sting. It was, in an angle. And Bill Watts held a raffle to determine the number one contender. Simmons wins the raffle and then beats Vader and wins the title. Were you keeping up with that even though you were up north? And was that something that you would have, kind of been in the loop on? Or were you shocked to hear that that was the way they were going?
I was not in the loop, obviously. And then the internet wasn't like it is today, obviously. Right. But I would never have been shocked to see Ron put in that position. And with Bill Watts running it, we left out the key guy. With Bill Watts running the company at that point in time, and his biggest star in his own company of all time was the Junkyard Dog. So I can see where Ron Simmons fit in. And Ron was 10 times the performer the Junkyard Dog was. I mean, Ron could really work.
Yeah, that's, obviously...
and he's legit. Bill Watts was really big on being legit, and Ron's legit. 4-time All-American, which how many guys are like that? I mean...
Why do you think Ron never got another run on top after that when he's got the universal respect, the legitimate background, all of his peers, seem to... I mean, you never hear anybody say anything bad about Ron Simmons. Why do you think he never got another run on top like that?
I have no idea. I really don't. I just think that I think when Eric and Hulk came along, they just had their own plan, their own agenda.
Right.
They pretty much just brought the whole, Hulk entourage into the company.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Boss Man, Tenta, Ed Leslie, everybody came down.
Yeah.
Michael Cole asked another question that I don't know that we've talked that much about. Your thoughts on WWE Raw and debuting the show in 1993. So that would have been something that hadn't happened for a while, live wrestling on a weeknight on a major cable station like USA. And now Raw's, making its debut. You're there. Is that something that you thought, hey, they're on to something big here? Or was this just business as usual from your perspective?
No, I thought they were on to something big. I wrestled Santana on that first show. And then I wrestled Kurt on the second one, and then I was gone.
Right.
In the loser league town.
So we've talked about that.
That's the infamous Ole Anderson story where he said to me, what good are you to me after doing the job for Kurt Hennig on national TV last night?
There's actually a drinking game on the podcast now amongst the listeners that every time you mention that Ole Anderson story, they have to take a drink.
What's that now?
There's a drinking game for listeners of the podcast now. Whenever you tell that Ole Anderson story, they have to take a drink. So
the story about
what good are you now? Yeah.
Yeah, what are you worth to the company? Yeah, I know. Too much, huh?
So let's talk about that, because I know that we're going to get some follow up. I know you've mentioned it before, but kind of behind the scenes, you had an understanding that when you first went to work for Vince, he said, "I'll always use you as a main eventer, and if I don't, I'll give you a heads up and an opportunity to go do something somewhere else." So he's coming to you now, and I guess maybe late '92 or very early '93. And how does he lay that out to you? What does that look like?
He just told me that he was going to go with the young guys, and that he gave me an opportunity to say, I know Watts, because Bill had been calling me every day, and he said, if you want to go, just I need you to do a favor for me, which I did, and I was gone, and I didn't realize that I was. I had so much fun there. I liked being there, but at the same time, I didn't want to be in a reduced role either. And ultimately, then along came Brett was predominant then, and then along came Sean, and the whole thing. But I guess going back, it's just part of my legacy. I mean, I went back and went through all the crap, but I don't even think about that anymore. I'm so happy. But and the thing of it is, if I hadn't come back in 2001, I probably would have, my legacy could have been completely different than it is right now.
So let me ask a question, talking about, what could have been. You jogged my memory on something I saw recently that I hadn't thought about since we had Cornette on the show. But you were talking to Cornette in '98 when you were kind of on the outs with WCW. I think it was around the time they were having a pay-per-view called Unforgiven, and they were having it in Greensboro. And so there was talk that maybe you would come in. So did they ever talk about if they brought you back and Ric Flair came back to the WWF in 1998, what you would have been programmed to do? Because at the time, DX is going on, they're in the Attitude Era, they're doing crazy over-the-top stuff. Where would you have fit in? Was that ever discussed at length with you,
Well,
Jim?
here's the deal. Because here's what happened. I was under contract, but Bischoff fired me. So
right.
I've been home, right? So Cornette called me and said, "Look, Reed had just won the AAU Nationals. That's what I got fired for. Reed won that tournament, the AAU Nationals in Detroit. So they wanted me to bring Reed and sit in the front row at the Coliseum, which was sold out, which would have been huge, right? I was dying to do it. And they were going to start talking about the fact that they had a champion in the front row that they were going to interview later in the show. And then they were to come over and interview Reed.
That's hilarious.
Oh, it would have been huge. And I wanted to go, but at the same time, I wanted to be with Arn and all those guys. I missed them a lot. So, and I don't know what I would have done up there. I mean, I know as short a period as it was. I mean, we had this little short run together, Arn and I, and the guys again, and then of course they screwed that up again. But it's all part. I look back on it now; it's all part of my legacy. And but that would have been fun to have that thing with Reed. They were going to tease it, for about an hour.
Huge.
And then have Ross walk over to him and start interviewing him. In Greensboro, they would have gotten a good reaction out of that.
Matt on Twitter asks, who was the best individual worker between the Rock and Roll Express and the Midnight Express?
Who was the best worker of the four guys?
Yeah, I guess you could say five if you included Condrey and Lane. But between Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton, Dennis Condrey, Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane.
Ricky Morton.
That's what I think everybody's going to say.
Ricky Morton and then Bobby Eaton. And
for those who don't know, the talk online is that you actually trained Stan Lane in the business. Is that accurate?
I did.
How did that come about? Do you remember where you met him or how that all was put together?
I'll tell you exactly. I was at the beach with a girl who I was just starting to date, just once in a while, and I ordered Bloody Marys and all that for the morning. The guy comes up bringing a tray of Bloody Marys to the room, and the lady goes, "Oh, hey, man, Ric Flair." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "My name's Stan Lane." He was working at the Hilton Hotel as a in catering at the Hilton in Myrtle Beach. And then I trained him in my garage. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, he was a 500 free squad guy. He did it all.
Jason on Twitter asks, when AA and Tully went to the WWF, did Naitch consider going with them?
No, I couldn't. But we had a tremendous party the night before where I acted up and I said to Arn, please don't mention anything about this, my acting up, misbehaving. And, of course, the first thing they told Vince when they walked in the door was, just seen Flair last night. Yeah, him and Blanchard both. I said, please don't mention any of this. You know, this is like our because they went on a QT meeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody knew they went for the day. So.
Greg Bass on Twitter asks, the first Clash of the Champions match with Sting and Ric Flair was the match that got me hooked on wrestling. What was yours?
What was my match that got me hooked on wrestling?
Yeah, I assume it was Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I liked it anyway, but I mean, Ray Stevens just took it to another level for me personally. But I mean, if you think about the guys I broke in with, I mean, here I am. I'm in Minneapolis. Dusty Rhodes, Dick Murdoch, Jimmy Snuka, Don Morocco, Larry Hennig, Nick Bockwinkel, Ray Stevens, Crusher, Bruiser, Jack Lanza, Jack Mulligan. Are you kidding me? I didn't have a chance.
Pink Elephant on Twitter asks, any truth to the rumors on Buddy Landell being the NWA champion?
Being the NWA champion?
Like there was a big talk of him getting a push, or was that just Buddy talking?
No, that was just Buddy talking, I'm sure. God rest his soul, but I never heard that.
Matt on Twitter asks, Dusty Rhodes was a 3-time champion, but they were all short reigns. Is there any reason why?
I don't know why.
In my head, Rick, it seems like back then, kind of the formula for drawing was you had like a heel champion, and in your case, maybe a chicken shit heel champion, and the babyface chase is what was drawing fans and interest. And if the babyface was the champion, maybe that's not as appealing long term.
I just think that they switched it on short. They did the same thing with Tommy Rich one time, remember, for a week. And I think they did it once in a while just to give the fans hope that these guys would have a chance. In Dusty's case, I think that that he was so valuable to Florida Championship Wrestling. I don't think Eddie wanted him to be gone for a long period of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, because he had it once he won it from Harley once and then dropped it back to Harley. Then he beat Harley again and he dropped it to me. And they're both short term. So I never thought of it. But I think in Dusty's case, he was so valuable in terms of those booking and being able to make the promotion better that they probably, without telling him, just said, "Hey, we need you here."
Right.
I mean, and Eddie had the stroke to make the calls to the other members of the board of directors.
Love listening to your favorite stations online? Download the radio.com app to get on-the-go access to hundreds of HD radio stations, award-winning podcasts, and top entertainment and music articles. Go to apps.radio.com for more information or download today from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
Introducing Play.it, a podcast network like no other. From award-winning news programming and #1 sports brands to entertainment and business leaders, Play.it is delivering storytelling at its best.
We're going to be having conversations with newsmakers and culture shapers.
I will be talking mostly about fashion and how I've been marketing all my life.
Tech, culture, and entrepreneurship.
Everything in the world of sports entertainment and wrestling and beyond.
Hear what you've been missing at Play.it.
There's something for every sports fan on CBSLocalSports.com. Watch live radio shows and original video programming while reading national articles from some of the best writers in the country. Visit CBSLocalSports.com today.
All right, we're going to take a quick pause on Wooooo Nation's Ask Naitch to tell you a little bit about Naitch's favorite mattress. It's the Casper mattress, of course. And see, with the Nature Boy, what he's talking about is his favorite bed of all time. It's the Casper. Not just any bed, but his king-size mattress is a Casper. Wendy put him in the figure 8 the other night on the Casper, and his life has never been the same. And it all started because he went to Casper.com, and you can do it too right now. And you can even get $50 towards any mattress purchase. You just need to use our promo code. That's FLAIR. Go to www.casper.com/Flair and then use the promo code. That's FLAIR. Seriously, they love their Casper mattress over at the Nature Boys household. I even got some here at the Conradison. Now, here's what you need to know about Casper. They're obsessively engineered mattresses at a shockingly fair price. They have just the right sink, just the right bounce. They have two technologies, both latex foam and memory foam, and they come together for better nights and brighter days. It's a risk-free trial and return policy, so just try sleeping on a Casper for 100 days with free delivery and painless returns. These mattresses are made right here in America, and they're very affordable. Check this out. $500 for a twin-sized, only $950 for a king-size. Are you kidding me? You're going to love this mattress as much as Rick and Wendy do. Take advantage of this special offer right now and get $50 towards any mattress purchase. All you've got to do is go to www.casper.com/Flair and use the promo code Flair. That's FLAIR, all at Casper.com/Flair. And don't forget that promo code FLAIR. Now back to more Woo Nation. Fran on Twitter asked a fun question that me and you've talked about before. Did Rick actually have a beef with Carlito for him being lazy when he cut that promo in 2007?
No, I love that kid.
If you haven't seen that promo, you should go Google it right now. It's Carlito and Ric Flair backstage during a Raw show, and Carlito was leaving the building early with his quote-unquote girlfriend, Tori Wilson, runs into Rick, and Rick cuts maybe his best promo in years at that point.
Yeah, well, I had just had a big fight with Vince, and I can't remember what it was about, but it was huge. And, so I had just had a huge argument with Vince. I really can't remember what it was about, but I think it was, was I going to get a match at WrestleMania or something? But, and I was walking down the hall, and Bruce Pritchard grabbed me and said, "Hey, we need you to grab Carlito." Just out of it took place in like 3 minutes, right?
Right.
He said Carlito's walking down the hall, he's leaving the building. They're shooting a little angle where he's been lazy or something like that. He'd just tear him up. Well, I was supposed to wrestle Mr. Anderson at WrestleMania, right? And then that promo was so good, I guess. I can't remember. The next day, they booked me and Carlito for WrestleMania, and they eventually, scrapped the match. So I don't know. I can't remember was it that good, huh?
Oh, it was very good, man. I mean, if you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to go check it out. He had a couple of, in my opinion, I'm talking about like you're not here, your promo in ring where you made yourself bleed in 2005 with Triple H, and then chased him around backstage, and you're just gushing blood and slapping it all over your white shirt. That was the best one that I saw in that run until that Carlito one backstage, which at the time didn't seem like a big deal, but man, it became a big deal after that one. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't remember. I just, I think back to the one where I handcuffed myself to the rope in my underwear.
Oh yeah, Nitro.
But when I can entertain Bobby Heenan, I know I'm doing something good. Heenan said that's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, it's hilarious.
When I could impress Bobby, I knew I was doing good.
Carl Johnson on Twitter has a question that we haven't ever talked about, as far as I know. I would love to know Rick's thoughts on CM Punk, especially with the Slammy segment with the two of them and Paul Heyman. So we can talk about the Slammy thing, but we've not really talked about your thoughts on CM Punk, the performer, his move to the UFC, any of that stuff.
Let me think. Well, first of all, I've never worked with him.
Right.
So here's the deal. I've always gotten along with him, and you judge people about how they treat you. I never had any problems with him. I never worked with him, and I thought he was a good performer. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call him great, but I thought he was good.
I think you guys did like a big 8 or 10 man tag once maybe, but nothing that was like just you two really getting after it. It wasn't really that type of match as far as I remember.
Yeah, I don't think so. I watched him on TV and all that, and I thought I don't know what the problems were. I just know that he left here with a lot of controversy, and that it seemed to affect AJ's run here too. So I don't really know. There's so many sides to these stories. I just know that Hunter is arguably my best friend alongside with you, and I can't see Hunter doing anything to hurt anybody. And I know Dr. Amen. I can't see Dr. Amen doing anything to put in someone in a position to get hurt. So
right.
That's all I can say. I mean, Hunter certainly wouldn't do anything to screw him. What does Hunter gain by screwing anybody, right?
Right.
I don't think he has to worry about going anywhere, and he's clearly a better performer when he does wrestle. So, and Dr. Amen, would never just dismiss an injury. That's not the way it works here.
Worth mentioning too, Rick, because you were going to get some comments when you said, why would Hunter want to hurt anybody? What we're talking about there specifically is at the end of the day, sure, wrestlers perform because they enjoy it, but at the end of the day, they're doing it for the same reason you go to work. They're doing it for a check. They're doing it to get paid. I mean, this is the way they feed their family. And if you've got a guaranteed contract for millions of dollars, winning and losing matches isn't nearly as important as did the check get to the mailbox on time. And I'm not trying to take the fun and the fandom out of wrestling, but when you're saying he wouldn't do anything to hurt someone, you mean to say, hey, he's going to honor the contract that they have, and he's not. But we're talking about winning or losing matches is the way people are going to hear what you just said there, and I don't think that's really what you meant.
Oh, no. I wasn't. Well, was that the dispute?
Well, no, just sometimes people online say, "Oh, Hunter likes to bury people," and "Oh, he just squashes everybody."
And I say bullshit to that. He don't bury anybody. Why? He doesn't have to. It makes no sense. Anybody to think it out, okay? I mean, it's like, it's.
Well, when he was a performer, perhaps, because now everybody's jockeying for the same position. But now that he's part owner of the damn company, it's different. Like, at my job, I employ people. I don't want one to do poorly and one to do well. I want everybody to do as good as they can because that's better for the overall company. Yeah,
he's in a different position now. Of course, we all, when we're working, we're all trying to be the best. But, if you are the best, all you got to do is go out in the ring and be the best. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Nobody can hold back your talent if you're in the ring. If someone said, well, I'm not going to give you a chance to get in the ring, then they're holding you back. If they're letting you get in the ring, you can, very simply distinguish yourself from your opponent or anybody else around that's got a problem with you being in that position. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know. I don't even know what the beef was about, but it wasn't about winning. It was about winning or losing. I didn't know that was the question. I just thought that it was more about him being injured and them making him work. Does that make sense? That's what I had heard.
Well, that is part of it, and part of it, I think was, he really wanted a main event of WrestleMania, and there's nothing wrong with having goals in wrestling and aspirations in wrestling, but I think he felt like he had been passed over, where, he was not pushed as the marquee guy and was not in the main event and was looked over. But even though it's like a cliche now because it's been used on television a lot, Vince tries to put together WrestleManias that are best for business, and he's proven to do that even when sometimes the guys are difficult to do business with, like going way back in time, Roddy Piper or Ultimate Warrior or whoever those guys, and at times Shawn Michaels was very difficult to deal with. But he did that because he thought, hey, this is what's best for business. This will generate the most interest, the most revenue. He's going to consistently try to put out cards that do that, not just necessarily cater to some individual's aspirations or goals.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I mean, he's all about making money. I mean, if I'm going to look at the big picture of Vince McMahon, the thing that I have struggled with for years is he forgives everybody.
Right.
I mean, and that hence the saying is that what's good for business. Okay. I would have had a very difficult time forgiving the people that were trying to close down the doors of the WWE, but he just rolled along with it and just said what's best for business. So, but a lot of people wouldn't take that attitude. I don't think you'd have that if somebody opened up across the street from First Family Mortgage and tried to shut you down. I mean, you guys probably wouldn't be at the Rhodes Cantina having a beer.
That's a fair statement. John Owens on Twitter wants to know, and we got a lot of questions about this since it's kind of the topic of the week. With Daniel Bryan retiring, does Rick believe that his career is Hall of Fame worthy?
Daniel Bryan, well, I'm sure he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, yes, and I don't know enough about his career. I can tell you this: that the guys up here that did work with him loved him. Once again, I have never been in the ring with him.
You know,
and I watched him work a lot. But the guys up here, his peers that did work with him, think the world of him. So I'm going to have to say yes, he's a Hall of Fame guy.
I don't know that you know this, Rick, but your friend Dave Meltzer puts out, his end of the year awards every year, and for years it was just like the most outstanding wrestler, and then eventually it became the Ric Flair Award because you won it so many times. Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan, however you know him, has held it. He is number 2 on the all-time list behind you as far as winning it the most times. So
wow.
So even though it may not have been in times when he was main eventing WrestleManias, he was carrying Ring of Honor and other promotions and having consistent 5-star matches everywhere he went. So the respect in the smart community and the wrestling journalists and amongst his peers, I would think, would make him a shoe-in. Maybe he didn't have the longevity that some of the other guys did, but when he was there, there was no one better.
Oh yeah, he made a huge impact here. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about whether he deserved to be in or not. I was giving people's,
Sure.
them my insight, because usually I can't tell you exactly how good a guy is if I haven't been in the ring with him. But the fact that everybody here loved working with him, and he, left on such a high note, and the reception or the departure of the show last week was fabulous with him. I mean, you could tell the fans cared. You could tell he cares. So, and that means a lot. I mean, that kind of stuff, I'm pretty sentimental about stuff like that. And he got a tremendous reaction. So I'm happy for him, and I'm happy for Bree. They seem like a real nice couple, and I think they're going to have a nice life together.
3 quick questions, then we'll wrap this one up. Jason on Twitter asked a great one. What NXT wrestler are you most interested in seeing on the main roster?
I can't answer that question because I haven't watched NXT, but if just off the top of my head, it would be Bayley.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are ready for Bayley to be on the main roster, and I think a lot of people, too, are curious how that will translate to the main roster because she had such a kind of a cult following there. And somebody on Twitter, and I don't have the handle in front of me, asked a question that I kind of skipped over because I thought everybody would know your answer, but it's worth asking. Do you prefer working in front of a smart crowd or not so much?
Well, that you can't get away from it now.
But I'm just saying, if you could get in your rewind machine and you could go back and wrestle in, 1976, or you could wrestle, at the NXT arena today, what would you pick?
1976.
Okay.
And anybody that knew that era, because you were almost putting your life on the line in some arenas. The people got that pissed off. I mean, and that excited. You know what I mean? I told you about the guy throwing the rattlesnake in the ring.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff. Man, people jumping in the ring every night. I mean, for a week straight. I mean, that was exciting to us. You know what I mean? We thought the word kayfabe meant everything. You know what I mean? Now it doesn't seem to hurt the people in terms of coming out, but you just try as hard to make your segment the best it can be, and I mean, I have 1,000 ideas, but it's only stuff that I could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses. I know how to make people mad. But in Vince's eyes, nobody will ever get mad at me because I'm a good guy now. Does that make sense?
Right.
I'm never going to win that argument. I could be bad. What?
E. Sinatra on Twitter asks, he wants to know about kind of what the real story was when Paul Heyman was fired from WCW in the early 90s. There's lots of speculation and lots of talk online, but nobody can ever really pinpoint exactly what went down. From your memory, what was the situation there?
I have no, I very rarely think back about stuff like that. I don't remember why. I see him all the time now, and I mean, it's not because he's not smart. I don't know. Maybe he got in an argument with who was booking it. I don't know.
Now, I'm not sure either, but I know that, there was talk that he was fired, and there's rumors, one way or another, and then I know there was a lawsuit after. And so there's lots of speculation about what that was about, but now nobody's really talking. So it's just kind of one of those.
Who was the lawsuit?
Paul Heyman sued WCW and received a settlement, from what I can gather.
Oh, he did? Oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that.
Jason on Twitter wants to know if you'd like to see the WWE incorporate some of the old Crockett ideas, like the Crockett Cup and War Games. I think they've kind of done the Crockett Cup in NXT, and they're doing it as a tribute to Dusty. But why do you think Vince never did War Games? Just because he just didn't want to do someone else's idea, or?
Very much that would be my total response to that. He doesn't like to copy people's stuff. I mean, you can say something that's do things that are relatively close and to be compared, but he would never use somebody else's name or on his product.
So
that would be my take on it. You know what I mean?
Rick, my best question is my last question. Nobody tweeted it, but I'm going to ask it, and I don't want us to get you in trouble here. But what's your take on the Titus O'Neil suspension situation? I'm going to find out all about that today. I don't know anything about it. I just heard about it. It happened while we were in Germany, or in the air. It happened. No, it happened after. I'm sorry. It happened when he showed up Tuesday to SmackDown, but you weren't even at SmackDown. You were on a flight. You were leaving.
Yeah, but it happened after the celebration for Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, on Raw.
During that sequence. And all I've heard is that, he playfully grabbed Vince, but I don't know. I didn't see it, and I have no idea. I'll find out today, because people have been talking about it all week long. It just, there's got to be more to it than I know, because I can't see anybody suspending him if it was just done to be playful. I don't know. And he's a very harmless type guy. He's not going to go out of his way to hurt anybody.
Sure.
To my knowledge. And I like Titus, so. But I'll find out today. There's probably something more to it than I know, so.
Well, Rick, I appreciate you joining me for Ask Naitch. I know I woke you up this morning. You had half a cup of coffee, and you're on the West Coast, and you've been traveling 20 hours. But we powered through, and we're actually going to try to do something we've never done before. And since we missed last week and we hated that happened, we're going to try to bring you another Woo Nation later this week. Isn't that right, Rick?
Yep. I think we're going to tape one on Thursday. How'd that sound, buddy?
Sounds great, man. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you get a quick nap before call time at the show.
I will. We've got the car picking us up at 11. Charlotte and I are off to Raw.
Woo, woo, woo.
Woo, woo. Take care, man. I love you, buddy.
Thanks, man.